It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. It's a beautiful sunny day on the Isthmus. I could save that one, on the Isthmus. A very beautiful woman walking down the road there. Shall I start this intro again? No, because that is often a spiral that escalates into something the recording equivalent of Don, what was his name, on Sesame Street, who used to bang his head on the keys when things weren't going well. What's Don's name, everyone? I know Statler and Waldorf. People say, oh, the two old guys on the Muppets. No, Statler and Waldorf. The yellow guy, I'll never get it, no. Something like that. I'm sure he was Don something. I'm wasting valuable time here. Today's been a big day because I have the equivalent of what they call overseas tenure as of today. In other words, I fell into being a teacher, as many of you regular listeners will know, and doing some post-grad study post-30, like many people do. And someone, when I first started doing that, around 2010, said, stick around. There'll be people retiring soon, jobs coming up. They said that with the best intentions. I did. I've got to say that coming up to 9 years, it was getting a little bit like a bookbinding apprenticeship, which I think takes about 12. But in all seriousness, it's been fantastic. The precarious nature of the contracts, not so much. And so that's what I found out today is about. Went for an interview for a role that I'd kind of done parts or most of for a lot of the last 8 or 9 years, and today was the day. So as I say, you know, the kind of the day-to-day stuff, the essentials will be nice getting pay over summer. I've had 8 weeks no income this time around, but more importantly, it'll be nice feeling actually entirely a part of the organisation now. I read more of the general emails now today than usual because I'm a go-getter who wants to get involved in the team. My guest today I'll chat about in a second. For my money, as a practitioner myself, as well as now I guess a teacher of some of this stuff, as well as, don't forget, the most important thing, an audience member. I think one of New Zealand's most talented and entertaining broadcasters. I discovered him, I'd been away from New Zealand, as we find out on the show, when his weekend variety wireless started, early 2000s, but I started catching it Sundays on the way home from generally dinner at my folks. And it must be good radio on Sunday if you get back inside and prolong the listening, because as I say to him on the show, I'm not generally a Sunday radio listener by habit. So just quickly, how do we get to postgrad study and then to work these years later when I never ever even slightly had aspirations to be an academic or a lecturer or a teacher or any of those things. In fact, my undergrad years in the 90s, great socially, great arts and culture-wise, obviously great having a student radio station up on campus. That did me well. Got my first job in the mornings on the brekkie through that, as well as learnt how to make ads. Met lots of older senseis who liked lots of interesting different kinds of music. So that was the good side of university. But really, having been to Wellington High School, which was just down the road, was also coeducational and was also mufti, it was just a bit further up the hill, to be honest. I could see how the people from single-sex schools, in the provinces, were bugging on out. Those halls of residence, goodness, sort of like a summer camp all year round. But also, a bit more of a darker tone. I was quite young, and so innocently, I was sort of quite a hyperactive fellow and probably stuck out a little bit. kind of if I were a meme back then, perhaps a sort of a Bart Simpson type sideways hat skateboard. Neither of those things, metaphorically, but some lecturers took the guilelessness from my point of view of that. Some took it as an annoyance, and one particular woman, even after 20 or so years of reflecting on this and talking to others in years gone by, Harriet Margolis, bless her, was actually a bully to the point where if I'd have known my rights back then, I could have complained. Then I didn't get into the major I wanted, and those years were just kind of hectic on that front. Then I got, as I say, into broadcasting. I had the music thing going, travelled a bit overseas. Then, I haven't really talked about this on the podcast, but in 2007, pretty much the main reason I came back to New Zealand is key categories of my life were not going very well. I just split up with a great woman. You can tell the way I framed that was probably my problems that caused it. I'd lost a job. I had a bunch of debt piling up. What else? I think there was a bit of a, with the benefit of hindsight, a bit of a breakdown thrown in there for good measure, with all of this stuff going on. And then I toughed it out, though I was bloody lucky to have them. So in the same breath, I'm forever grateful. But it was hard. I moved back and lived with my folks for a year post living with girlfriend at the age of 30. Then after a couple of years, I still felt a bit directionless here, and I'd done some sort of self-help stuff. And one of the things suggested to me, it might have been in counselling or whatever, was just try something that you normally would never ever try, something completely different. The idea being that sometimes all our best ideas can be our worst ideas. So I thought, okay, I'll enroll in postgrad. And I was originally going to go and do something like a journalism diploma or an ad creativity diploma, because I thought it'd be a bit of paper that sort of said I could do some of the things I'd done in the past, and I'd try and forge a bit more of what they call a portfolio career from that. But someone talked me into creative industries, which left me with the same dilemma as the BA, and it was incredibly enjoyable. I did a BA in theatre and film at Vic, 94 to 96, but very academically focused. So once again, you can see where I wanted the ticket to light the gas lamp in the morning. I wanted the intellectual stuff as well, but I wanted more of a kind of a vocation-based qualification. Well, look what happened. Did quite well that year, won the postgrad something or other student, flash guy, best postgrad student. Then got a scholarship, did a master's. Then I think I took a year off, kept teaching a little bit. Then I got a really flash scholarship that included a stipend. It was paying me to do my PhD. It was brilliant, a tax-free amount of money and the fees. Did my PhD, taught all that way, finished my PhD in 2016, and then in 2018 or 19, 2 years of, I'm going off the track now, 2 years of sort of, short contracts, here we are. I am on board. So the punchline of that story is I tried something I wouldn't normally try in those years, which is going back to uni, based on the fact that my memories of uni weren't amazing on the class and organisational side of it. I got talked into something completely different than I wanted to do. I thought it was a terrible mistake. Turns out to be one of the best things I've ever done. I've grown in many ways. I love teaching. It has made me more humble. I genuinely want to help people now, rather than perhaps have parts of myself up in lights like I might have more in my 20s. Where are we? 8 minutes 29. If you don't even know who I am and you tuned in, which is highly likely, for my guest Graeme, then I hope you enjoyed that story and could relate to it based on elements of your own life, which is what podcasting is about. I was going to talk a little bit about what Graeme and I talked about, but as I say, I don't want to hold you hostage. Let's get into the show. He's very funny, he's very energetic, he's very quick, he's very articulate, and often in the past I would have probably tended to have some kind of battle, in a fun, in a battle of the wits kind of way with someone like that. But I noticed I kind of dialed it back in this one, but still got some insights in where I thought fit. Like the show, Verbal Highs, a podcast on Facebook, Verbal Highs on Twitter. You can find me on iTunes. On with the show.
This is Dr. Janet's Verbal Highs.
So, how do you collect flies without poisoning them first? Because I'd imagine if a lizard's going to eat them, they can't be full of fly spray. Or
No.
how do you catch them?
There are things called butterfly nets,
Yeah.
and there are things called fly traps.
But how does a fly trap ethically? How does a fly trap ethically catch a fly or without poison?
They go into a container
Yeah.
from which it's far more easy to enter than it is to exit.
Oh.
So you end up with a quantity of flies in a sort of a jar.
So it's kind of like fly social media, like Facebook, or like the Hotel California.
Sort of. You release them to the geckos, and they take care of them in their own time.
And where did your interest in reptiles come from?
Oh, it's not an interest in reptiles per se. It's an interest in New Zealand biodiversity, I suppose, biology.
Yeah, and so in that breath, you'd think that you're keeping some kind of ecosystem. You've only told me about the geckos. No, just geckos?
Well, you rarely see them.
Yeah.
And they're cool little things.
But they're in your house. They're pets, right?
No, they're not pets.
Oh, well, that's the bit when you said you had 15 or 16.
Yeah, I do.
Okay, where are
14. They're in enclosures
Oh, yeah.
in the yard. They're New Zealanders.
Right, but they're not... Okay, so they're not free.
You don't have them on a leash.
Yeah.
They don't do tricks.
Yeah.
It's basically a breeding program to keep some numbers up.
Oh, right, so you're genuine... So the numbers are down and you are trying to do your part by having them somewhere safe on a diet of delicious city flies.
Yep.
Organic, and how do you know? How do you determine you've got enough of each gender and stuff? You just wait and see if there's eggs.
They don't lay eggs.
Oh.
Do you want to talk? We can
Absolutely,
talk about
yeah. This is really interesting
geckos
and worthwhile, Graeme.
There are more reptile species endemic, only found in New Zealand, than there are birds only found in New Zealand.
Because the common, I guess, misconception is the bird thing with no mammals.
Yeah. All I've got is Auckland green geckos.
Yeah.
They exist quite happily in the wild, although you'll hardly ever see one.
Yeah.
It's quite good for what they call advocacy as well.
Yeah.
Because people never see them. You get kids around and they love a gecko because they're like little mini dinosaurs. And just to let people know that they're ours, they're New Zealanders, and they're extraordinary little things.
So you say there's plenty around, but at the same time, I mean, this is my Wellington experience. I can't remember green anything, but we had what we called skinks that were abundant in the hills, the town belt in Wellington.
Yeah.
And a different experience.
When was that?
80s. I'm 42, so kids you go and collect them, you'd find them easily. And the word I've had is that you don't really find skinks in the town belt now. So it's a funny little, you know how they talk about in sort of the conservation racket, how cutesy animals kind of they get a better go of it. So something like the skink disappears, you don't sort of really think about it. So.
Yeah. Well, what's happening with the skinks is...
So they're a New Zealand-wide thing, the skink. They're smaller than a gecko, right?
There are many, many species of skink.
Okay.
Many, many, many. Some of them extremely rare. Some of them have their own enclosures in Otago, massive things.
Right. So what's happening with them is...
And the thing with the skinks is that we have an invasive species called a rainbow skink. And if you see a skink during the day, like wandering around on the deck and scurrying about, I would back at pretty short odds that it's a rainbow skink, otherwise known as the plague skink.
And is that old chestnut of they've come in and they're the dominant one and they take all the resources?
Yeah, a bit like that. Further research is required, but the precedent is that in Hawaii, they've made it to Hawaii, and there they're called the plague skink.
Right.
It'll give you some indication on what we might be in for.
So my next breath in question has been answered then, so it wouldn't be a disservice to step on it, or...
It's probably,
Yeah.
probably just need to get rid of the buggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
But you'd want to know if it was a New Zealander or not.
before you stood on it and you go, actually, oops, that one was just out during the day because it was a little ill and it was a local that needed help. I want to get back to the eggs thing soon, but when I'm in the Coromandel, which is a new thing for me because being from Wellington, when you holiday when you're a kid, you don't generally go that far up. You kind of go Napier, Hastings.
Right.
So I've just got to know that ecosystem in the last 5 or so years.
Coromandel affair.
Yeah, my parents got the patch up there. And just the introduced species thing, like little kind of metaphors you get for it, like when I'm on the beach fishing, everything works in harmony except one thing. The one thing that bothers you all day are the wasps.
Yeah.
You know? And it's the same on the deck at the actual property. It's the same, you know, the only thing that causes a kind of disruption to the system, an annoyance, is those things.
Yep. An annoyance is one thing, but they're deadly. New Zealand is the most wasp-ridden land on the planet.
Yeah.
And they only got here like around 1945.
So were they, because you're a little older than me, they were the classic, like when I was at primary school, they were like the danger near the rubbish bin.
Yeah.
You know, discarded lunch.
Well, a bit more of a danger if you are a native admiral caterpillar and it's just coming to clean you up, like the paper wasps that got here in the mid-70s, probably on Sid Going's boots, and they're just ravaging our insect life.
Why don't geckos lay eggs? I thought reptiles lay eggs.
New Zealand biology is almost always weird.
Yeah. Look at the two of
and
us.
Outliers.
Yeah.
And, well, here's another weird thing about geckos laying eggs. None of our reptiles lays an egg.
Yeah.
Except for one.
The tuatara?
No.
No.
It's not a lizard.
Yeah.
It is a reptile, yeah. So it lays an egg, but it's
I needed a Venn diagram there for a second.
It's a big outlier. The tuatara is one of the weirdest things to exist on the planet.
Yeah. Hang on, stay in the egg lane.
The egg laying. There's only one egg laying skink in New Zealand.
Oh, skink, yep.
But you've got all the other species, they're all, as they call it, viviparous.
So, just quickly, I'm with Graeme, who up until very recently had a show called The Weekend Variety Wireless, and I think what we've essentially been chatting about is kind of a small taste of the feel of the show unintentionally, which we'll chat about later. Graeme came in last week.
A bit of smart arsery.
Yeah. Graeme came. Graeme.
I know.
No. It's a bit of quality information delivered in an entertaining and engaging format. Now,
well, that's nice of you to say so, but I also think it could be interpreted as I know enough to get myself into trouble, but not out of it.
Well, welcome to podcasting. Now, you came over last week. We got 45 minutes in. My show's normally between an hour and 20, and everything died. And experience tells me 40 is about when you start to sort of really hit your stride, and you're both comfortable with each other. And it was totally fucking embarrassing. But anyway,
it's all right.
You've come back.
It happens.
But I got you a wee gift.
Oh, thank you. Oh, an ashtray.
I went and bought it yesterday.
Great.
I got rid of them all when I gave up.
Air New Zealand ashtrays. I like them.
I'll tell you,
they used to design aeroplanes from the ashtray out.
Yeah. Yeah, like movie theatres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Start with the ashtray, how that's going to work, and then make the seat.
It's a sad state of affairs today, Graeme. I found that in a very marginalised part of the $2 shop.
Yeah.
And there was only 2 designs, so
right.
I was looking for something with a bit more personality, but
right.
You know, it is what it is.
Next to the Nazi armbands.
Yeah. I'm of an age where I remember those McDonald's tinfoil ashtrays, and just rows of between 13 and 16-year-olds sitting in the front of McDonald's, smoking inside after school.
In the 1950s, at union meetings, no one could see Jim Knox speaking. It was just through a cloud of smoke.
With your show, I listen. So I shouldn't say actually, but the way my Sundays normally go is I just don't listen. Would never listen to 4 hours of radio in a row, for better or for worse. But I listened to your show back to back up online, And as I said before, you cover. It was almost like a well-rounded, traditional education. I got my history. I got my poetry. I got my science. And then hearing you talk about your gecko collection, where do you get all the information from? So outside of the show, are you just like an information sponge? Books, yeah.
Yeah, books.
I've heard of those.
Yeah. I still have quite a few of them, and they're still useful. I'm interested in things.
Yeah.
I like to get to the bottom of something.
Yeah.
If it makes me wonder, I go, I wonder how does that work?
So is it elite to suggest that having a 4-hour variety / magazine show to fill a week is ideal, and that you can potentially justify 30 hours of reading books and looking on the internet as searching for content? Sounds like a ideal world to live in to me.
Well, you do research and find things that are interesting, and then find people that can talk about it. One of the mission statements, slightly tongue-in-cheek, for the Weekend Variety Wireless was find something that nobody's interested in, find someone for whom it's their life's passion, and talk to them for about 40 minutes.
Like Starkey. I mean, do you know...
Ringo.
Was his name Starkey? Is the not one of your guests, but your history...
Douglas Stark.
Yeah, your history buff, who was a character unto himself.
Yeah.
This stuff, these stories, because a lot of them aren't written down. It's amazing that there are a lot that are written down, that you just got to find someone.
Yeah.
But then, how many of them actually have a mouthpiece out to an audience?
We should tell people Douglas Stark was a World War One...
He was New Zealand's Rambo.
Yeah. Yeah, in inverted commas, a hero, but quite likely a psychopath as well.
Yeah. Who then came back to provincial New Zealand, not already having been a psychopath to begin with, but probably with PTSD.
Hooked up with Robin Hyde, the poet / author.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember the end of the story.
Maybe unfair saying psychopath. He was certainly...
he wasn't
a bit more brave or stupid in the line of fire.
And as a narrative
World War One, Jesus, he should be dead.
As a sort of a convenient narrative of a character, he doesn't fit into like, this is our, war medal winner, or this is our criminal and rogue. He was kind of like, the volume was on 110 for many different kinds of personality.
Military authorities didn't know whether to give him the VC or give him a court-martial. Yeah. It's a bit like that.
And he ended up on the battlefield because he was actually doing hard labour, and they wanted to put Crims at the front because they thought they were scum, but he turned out to be...
useful.
And not only useful, but he had kind of ethics and morals that suited wartime. Battlefield, dragging people back and having them live.
Yeah.
Do you try and get a sort of a thread of a narrative through the shows? Because I noticed you had the poet on, I forget her name, awkwardly.
Michelle Liggett.
Yeah, Michelle Liggett, who read...
Robin Hyde's poem.
Starkey's autobiographer's poem.
Yes.
And then lo and behold, Starkey's on in the final hour.
Yeah.
So that can't just be coincidence,
That
right?
was a happy accident.
Was it?
Ways. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did notice there was a connection possible, so yes. Yeah, but it doesn't always happen that way.
When we were here last, you said you were from Northland.
Yep.
You said that Northland, perhaps the bureaucracy in Northland shoots itself in the foot a little in terms of Northland getting things done. Yeah, is that fair enough?
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we talked about how you started off at BFM.
I'm just sick of it being a second division place.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, it was a second division place, and it's still sort of second division. And this is too long for it to be just too long to be that shitty. It's a beautiful place.
Yeah, it is.
And the people are great. If only they bloody get their shit together. I'm embarrassed.
But
sorry, Northland.
But you're not. But to
I
be
love
clear,
Northland.
what I got,
this is why I'm saying it. I love the place.
I get the passion. Yeah. So, but you're not saying, the way I heard it last time is you're not saying the whole population of Northland. You're sort of.
Well, that would be stupid, wouldn't it?
I took it to hear like it comes from the top and it's been run poorly for years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then we talked about...
Yeah, but this isn't even that level of hierarchy of bureaucracy. It's
Right.
like everyone fighting amongst each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that whole...
Too much of that.
That's that whole...
Some great things that happen there, but it's still just too...
You could argue the merits of both today, because it's sort of like, you know, does the collective way of doing things get you anywhere better than the hierarchical ways do?
Collective.
Somewhere in the middle. But you say the collective are like
Collective
lemmings
is half the problem.
bumping into each other.
Does everyone have to be collective about everything?
I'm just...
Who runs the collection? Look, I have a solution. I often wanted to do this. Anyone who was brought up in Northland will have this experience. You go to the top of the Brynderwyn Hills on the road from Auckland to Northland. And you get to the top, and suddenly the vista of the Whangarei Heads opens out to you.
Yeah.
And it's the most delicious view for me on the planet. My heart slows.
Yeah.
I have an involuntary sigh. I cannot help but go...
Yeah.
About there, you put a toll, and you take some money for that privilege.
Yeah. Why not? They do it when I was in Japan. They do it with the temples.
For years, they did it when I was travelling down to Auckland.
A nominal thing.
Northland does not rub shoulders with any other province in the country. It's unique in that way.
Yeah.
Auckland's not a province; it's a big bloody city that clogs up the isthmus.
Yeah.
Northland has this very solo, isolate feeling.
Yeah.
You don't travel from Northland to anywhere else.
Well, that's also because there's only one direction to travel.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah.
It's a different geographical mindset.
Yep. So pay toll for a sigh at the beauty and expanse of the world.
The bottom of the hill, we don't want traffic clogging up. You go to a place and it has not a pristine, but it has a gorgeous kind of beauty to it, and everyone says, excellent, I'd like to be there, and then they all go there and build houses there, and it's no longer what it was.
Yeah. Then we talked about, I'm trying to get to the first 40 minutes, then we talked about your father, who was a very practical man, and your schooling, and the fact that you had tonsillitis up until the third year of uni, but no one thought to remove them.
I thought to remove them.
What was the public health system didn't think to remove them?
It was. I actually had tonsillitis, only really kicked in after, when? I was about 18 or something, 16, 17.
And then your life...
it would hit you for about 7 weeks of a bad year, and that really crippled university studies.
Yeah.
And then I lost the end off my finger and missed the zoology labs, and so decided to go, okay, I'm going to have to redo a whole year. How about I just put some effort into the band that we had together?
Yeah. Which was the Able Tasmans.
Which was the Able Tasmans, yeah. That formed from a Northland outfit called Sister Ray.
Which then signed to Flying Nun, but there was no official contract. It was just a phone call with Roger.
Yeah.
And you guys were a band for about the next 10 years, weren't you?
Yeah, a bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Till about 96, I think. The interesting thing is the first contract I signed with Flying Nun was, I think, just 2 years ago.
What's that for?
It was when it was being cleaned up and organised.
They were crossing I's and dotting T's and going through and making... Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
In this modern world.
Yeah.
What do you do to sate the musical side of things these days? Do you still pick up an instrument?
Oh, I noodle away on the piano a bit.
Yeah.
Myself and Peter Keane did an album that we're very proud of. It's just called Humphreys and Keane.
Yeah.
It's The Overflow.
Yeah.
It can be found online. And, yeah, that came out in about 2006.
Yeah. And you have a bit of a home studio and record? Or
No.
just plunk away on an upright? You were originally going to be a star of stage as Graeme Humphreys, so I thought you better change your name to Graeme Hill because you'd started volunteering on BFM. Then, arguably, or actually the way you tell it, so it's not an argument, it's your story, which I'm telling, weirdly, while you sit here, the media side of things took off further and your birth name was lost to borders and official government forms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just that I was on the radio at BFM and our music was being programmed, and I just thought it was unfair on the band for any perceived conflict of interest. And so I just grabbed another name for the radio, thinking that this would be an interesting hobby when, of course, the band was going to be marvellous and huge.
Yeah. Most famously, BFM-wise anyway, I think, those early names are often actually mainly Marcus and Mikey, the two M's, but, write-up-wise, but...
There was amazing intake
Yeah.
in around the early 80s.
Yeah.
Now, don't forget about them.
No, that's what I'm meaning. I was about to get to the fact that era is a little bit forgotten in writing and so on. And so you were the initial breakfast host, and those who know say you were brilliant at it. What are your kind of fond memories of Brekkie? Because it was sort of your first big radio gig, wasn't it?
I was the first one that put my hand up to do it all the time,
Yeah.
because I thought that might be a good idea. Other radio stations did it, and we could kind of brand it a bit and have a consistency that people would know what they're going to get,
Yeah.
and be a bit wild and have fun.
Yeah.
You'd get drunk on a Friday, you'd have strippers come in, just all good wholesome stuff, really.
Yeah. Wouldn't wash these days, but of the era.
Why not?
I think that
Is there something wrong with the stripper?
I just think there's a lot of how do I put this? No, I don't think there's anything wrong with the stripper at all. I just think there's a lot of I think there's a lot of sort of
We had a guy come
double-barreled surnames up
an
at
enormous
BFM now
cock.
that might be offensive. They were fantastic. I had it was someone, I think it was one of the guys from Head Like a Hole who could fart on command. These are the
That's a talent.
student radio breakfast things you do, and I witnessed him crouch into that position. We got the mic down there, Radio Gold.
Practical jokes were always very good.
Yeah.
There was this guy, and he was ripe for ribbing. He was on air, and kind of fancied himself a little bit. And I thought, well, we'll knock him down a rung or two,
We'll beat that out of him.
because that was the training system at BFM. It was basically if you could handle the bullying.
Yeah, again, of the era. Yep,
yeah.
some hazing.
So as the door opened to the studio, if you were in the studio at the desk, you couldn't see below about hip height.
Yeah.
So someone went into the studio. I snuck in really low down and hid under the desk
While he was on air?
while he was on air. He didn't know I was in the room.
Yeah.
And when you're on air, you do feel kind of comfortably alone and isolated, and it's your thing.
Yeah.
And I had to wait some time for him to do a lengthy voice break. And I grabbed his cock and balls from under the desk. He didn't know anyone was there. And there's something really appealing about a genuine, unrehearsed yelp.
Yeah.
And it came out on air just wonderfully. It was a man in fear for his life, in the middle of a calm community notice.
Completely unaware of where the threat was coming from.
Well, that was the surprise, yeah.
Now, again, like I say...
That was quite fun.
Like I say, it's quite fun. He never, it's never come back on you. He's not going to reappear and say anything about it 20 or 30 years later.
No,
but that's how the climate's changed.
I think he tried to complain about it, but we all thought it was absolutely hilarious fun, and he should just grow up.
Touche. And from there, you built...
Oh, and another one. You wanted fond experiences.
Yeah.
This is classic BFM. There was a band from Dunedin called The Puddle.
Yeah.
And they had minimal concern about audio quality. It was more about what the tune actually was.
Yeah.
And one of their records had this horrific earth hum, like someone had kicked a jack plug halfway out of the desk. So it goes on one side for about a minute and a half.
Yeah.
And I played that tune. And Rick Huntington, the technical engineer at BFM...
Still Rick Breeze of Rick Breeze Weather.
He's still there. He hooned it into the radio station, went into the studio and says, "What's wrong? How do we fix this?" He thought it was the station was broken.
Bless him.
It was the puddle.
Bless him. And from there, you went on and kept doing media,
Yeah.
quote unquote.
Yeah. I was offered a job when I finished breakfast compiling sports highlights for a program called The Sports Cafe.
Yeah.
And then I bullshitted my way into that, just lied, said that I knew how to do it, and I didn't. Bit of a sharp learning curve and a lot of stress and cortisol going around your bloodstream for a couple of weeks. But I got the hang of it, and it was good fun.
TV rather than radio, right? That was Sky Sports Cafe?
The Sky Sports Cafe, yeah.
Sky,
Which went for 10 years.
Yeah, well, and also Sky would have been sort of the beginnings of its heyday then, wouldn't it?
Yeah, well, Sky was really cutting edge. They were doing really, really interesting things.
Because just jumping ahead a bit, then you ended up hosting a sports-focused show on a station, didn't
On
you?
Radio Sport,
On Radio
yeah.
Sport, yeah.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of you I know pretty much nothing about. You're a sport nut? Or
No? I've always been a bit interested in sport.
Yeah. You're
As-
just more like a colour announcer, as they say.
It's a good enough canvas. It's just as good a canvas for human stories and drama to appear than anything else. It's
Yeah.
really neat.
But so my concern would be if I did that kind of announcing. Like I'm guessing you had someone else with you. I wasn't in New Zealand at the time. You had someone else with you who had all that kind of facts and figures shit that sports listeners want.
Yeah.
You need the entertainer and then the person who knows what number 14 is and their specs and that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
How long
I find that a bit boring, actually.
Well, so do I. But I thought that sports
but
radio,
the
you need
stats
all
are
that.
there. Yeah.
No, I'm with you. I mean, I listen to. There's a big American guy. You'd know his name. He does a podcast now. He came from ESPN as a young guy, and I'm not into sport, but he's just such
Keith Olbermann? Ben Miller?
Bill something. He's such a talented kind of or entertaining person to listen to that I've learnt a lot about sport just because I listen to his
One of the most
podcast on the strength of him. I'll get his name. Keep going.
One of the most beautiful, astounding pieces of radio I've ever heard. I've kept this.
Really?
I have the audio. Radio Sport haven't thought to put it up online. I got in touch with them and said, "You're stupid. This is one of the best bits of radio I've ever heard."
Really?
Of any format. Of any subject. It was Jeremy Coney regaling the test win at Carisbrook, 1985.
Where did you find it?
Where did I find what?
Where did you find that piece of footage?
On Radio Sport.
But hang on, you just said you asked him to play it. I thought you'd listen to it in the archives.
Keep it.
Oh, you recorded it in the 80s? Oh, wow. And
I didn't record it in the 80s. It was Jeremy Coney regaling what happened. It's about 25 minutes long, and it's one of the best stories ever told. It's beautiful.
How do you have it?
I recorded it.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's a recording. Oh, this is like the Abbott and Costello routine. I get the sentiment.
Yeah. I have a program on my computer where if anything makes a noise, I've got it. So I went back to their Week on Demand site,
okay,
pressed play, record.
I've taken all the romance and love out of this story because I just realised I thought you meant that it happened in 1985, and I was like, how did you record
I
it?
was listening in 1985,
Yeah.
but Jerry Coney couldn't regale it then because he was out in the middle.
I know. That's how little I know about sport.
With you and Chatfield.
His name's Bill Simmons.
Uh-huh.
No?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
Great sports storyteller.
I'll look him up.
How long did you do sports radio above the line, as it were?
That was 2000... Was it 99?
Yeah.
About 99 to 2005.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I wanted to do more general things, and I had an opportunity to, so I grasped the opportunity and moved to Radio Live to do essentially what you described at the beginning of this podcast, which is the Weekend Variety Wireless.
Did that start in the early 2000s?
Started in 2006.
Wow. Yeah, you seem to be playing it down. That would seem to be a bit of a loss. How are you about it? 13 years of a show?
Oh, it's been a disruption, but you move on.
Yeah.
Yep. I managed to save the podcasts as an archive.
Yeah.
I've managed to save a lot of the special features like Shipwreck Tales and Jared Heinreich's Outsiders, and there's a thing called Ngā Taonga. It's basically Alexander Turnbull Library audio-visual.
Yep.
And
sound and vision. Yep.
Keep it in perpetuity so anyone can listen to them forever.
And it's nice that we've got enough hard drive now to do it, because, you know, as you know, with TV and radio, like TV used to go over the tape because tape was expensive.
We lost all those Barry Jenkins.
Yeah, globally.
Barry Jenkins
absolutely.
Radio with pictures.
Yeah, just, you know, a huge...
Good evening, citizens. The B-52s, they're going to rocket up the charts when they grow up.
This man knows how to ride a compressor. Who were you guys growing on up? Most of us who end up doing something like this were inspired by who we heard. I've got distinct childhood memories. Who were your kind of radio heroes?
I don't know if I had them.
No?
Howard Stern.
Really? How long ago? How did you get that in New Zealand back in the day?
I went to the States.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one really... It's terrible, isn't it? No one completely is looming large.
Yeah.
I love the idea of radio.
I like that you
Some of the BFM kids in early 80s, before I ever went to BFM,
Yeah.
I tuned into BFM when I came to university at the age of... How old was I? 16?
Yeah. I like that you say Stern, because...
It was a long time before I heard Stern. It would have been 1990 or something.
No, but just in general, like...
I was addicted.
New Zealanders can be quite conservative in their approach to things. I think there's a number of reasons for that. You wouldn't really get a Stern here, but he is a brilliant and kind of natural broadcaster.
Yeah. And I think misrepresented by a lot of people.
Yeah.
He's a kind and thoughtful man.
Yeah, no, that's right.
And it's not what people think of when they hear Howard Stern, but that is my opinion.
Well, it's because, like you say, some people it's what they listen for. If you listen to it, and I mean, you know, there are polarised.
I've always loved the BBC World Service.
Yeah,
that's a completely way over there, different sort of thing.
Yeah,
but some of the things they've done are just astounding.
Yeah.
Beautiful storytelling.
Yeah, they've
a news team that you just got to take your hard hat off to.
Yeah,
and broadcasting now from the roof of an Afghani.
Yeah, BBC and NPR. Like sometimes, some programming can be a little smug. Sometimes I find public radio a little smug.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I think a show like yours being on a station like Live was really important, because it's got that public radio spirit to it in terms of its smartness, but you arguably get a bit more of an everyman audience on a station like that. You could say that you're a public intellectual in the way on that show, so you'd suit national radio, but would you do national radio? I'd say you're a bit too Howard Sterny for it.
It depends. Depends how much they'd allow me to be myself.
That's
how
what
much
I mean.
I need to be myself. And that is a big factor. I would need to be myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But why couldn't you be yourself on the national public broadcaster as an intelligent broadcaster?
I'm not saying I couldn't.
And I'm not saying you couldn't either, but I'm asking why you say you couldn't.
No, I'm not saying I couldn't.
Okay. What you said to me last week, I thought about, and I think it's very achievable, is...
I appeal to the audience. Did I say I couldn't?
I'm not trying to be a life coach here. Graeme, you might not even want any advice about what to do next, but you mentioned, I should be doing something like this. I see no reason why you couldn't set up the Weekend Variety Wireless with supporters.
Yeah.
In terms of, advertisers, and go for it.
Yeah.
You could probably do it from home.
Definitely an option. I'm, at the moment, circling Heathrow Airport, figuring out a good landing strip. I don't know how it will turn out, but it's definitely an option.
I think it suits you and your style, and I think achievable. And I also think that I know that there's not enough people. Are podcast fucking balmy at the moment. People are listening to hours of them. Hugely popular in New Zealand. iHeartRadio. I had a moment listening to the radio the other day, and they were advertising Mark Maron and Rogan, 2 shows I listen to all the time. But I'm like, we should have New Zealand equivalents of this being advertised through iHeartRadio. You know,
you're doing this.
Yeah. There's a gap there.
Yeah, it's incredible, isn't it, how popular Joe Rogan has turned out to be? Because when you...
I shouldn't be listening to him. I think he's amazing.
When you pair him apart, there isn't anything I can find that's utterly unique or remarkable about him. But he's massively popular.
Oh, have you listened to a lot of his podcasts?
Yeah, lots of them.
Yeah, but he's still... I can see what you're saying, yeah. But it's obviously a talent, though, that we keep listening. And that he can put a 4-hour one up, and we will listen. Yeah. And I like that. Actually, you mentioning Rogan kind of speaks to...
But what is it? What's special about him? Can you identify
Well, I was about
anything?
to say, I think it might be what I talked about before, that I'm someone who will exist in both worlds.
Yeah.
I will listen to really, a general audience might think dry public radio, really interesting information, dense stuff, but then I'll listen to Stern, and then I'll listen to everything in between. I think for some people, it might be exposure or whatever, they kind of exist in pockets, or they think some stuff's nerdy or whatever. I think Rogan, I don't think many people can have an MMA guy on one day and then a doctor of, whatever on another day, and then someone from part of the US government on another day. Yeah. But the way he does it and mixes those worlds in, it's not really been done before.
Yeah. He's not David Frost. He's an unlikely success.
Yeah.
Good on him. I enjoy his podcasts. Yeah. But I just thought it was worth mentioning as a challenge what is special about him.
Crosses over different worlds, as I say. I mean, like I say at the beginning, and I've actually listened to enough of them long enough now that I've heard him develop, as you would with anyone, and his insight and his outlook on the world and stuff. But yeah, at the beginning, I would have been prejudiced. That's another thing you talk about. Why would I listen to an MMA guy who used to be on Fear Factor? And then someone said, you got to listen to this, and it went, from there.
Well, there's another question. Why is PewDiePie so popular?
What is PewDiePie?
PewDiePie owns the internet.
Yeah, okay. Tell me about this.
Oh, how many followers? Is it 80 million?
Is this a thing for kids?
Well, a bit.
Yeah, I know the name. I can't tell you anything about it. What's PewDiePie?
I find him unremarkable, but he is the most huge success on YouTube.
But for who? Adults, kids?
I suppose younger people. No, adults.
What about the Fat Jew?
The Fat Jew?
The Fat Jew. It's one of the biggest social media stars in the world.
Oh, okay.
I don't really get it.
Right.
You haven't heard of the Fat Jew?
No.
So what does PewDiePie do?
Oh, plays games, does some skits, talks about stuff.
Have you got young kids?
No.
No. Have you got kids?
No.
No. Do you want kids?
I didn't want to clutter the planet.
No. It's good. It's very environmentally aware of you.
Thank you.
Geckos are much smaller.
No one even talks about kids' carbon footprint. They're always grilled about, do you use your car? Do you recycle this? Do you do that? No one says how many kids have you got. That's the biggest carbon footprint you could ever have.
China have reversed their one-child policy. Just thought I'd put that on as an addendum. So following doing Frontline Radio Sport, you got on the writing and sort of creative team for Eating Media Lunch and a few other of Paul's projects.
Yep.
And
Paul Casserly.
Great moments in New Zealand television. How was that?
It was just such a joy working for Eating Media Lunch and the Unauthorised History of New Zealand.
Yeah, great.
You just get around script writing meetings and just make shit up and try to make each other laugh. And
God, what a job. What a job.
And then it would be either up to you or somebody else to turn these scenarios into something visual with access to Television New Zealand Archive, which was just so much fun. And getting to direct pieces, and you'd see it happen on the tally. Oh my God, there it was.
Yeah. And Paul's done a lot of interesting projects. What's he doing now?
Paul?
Yeah.
Television directing.
Yeah.
And music.
Yeah.
Doing some more music with Fiona McDonald. It's a sort of a Straw People-y thing.
Yeah. I'd love to have him on. I might try and get him on.
He and I, actually, I was doing voices for Go Ahead Caller on national radio.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Steve Hansen.
Yeah.
And I was Bob Jones. Oh, for God's sake. I don't do that. No.
One of my enduring... It's weird you say Bob Jones.
Oh, God, I wish I was homosexual. Don't you, Graeme?
You
probably are.
One of my enduring memories of one of those two shows was Bob Jones in the large leather seat, just spewing,
Bob's lovely.
Spewing forth racism with Jeremy straight-faced with a cognac and a cigar. Does that ring
Was
a
it
bell?
racism?
Do we have to bother about burying them? Can't we leave the corpses hanging out there to rot? Who's real villains here? Who do harm to this society? Probably show off Maoris like that fat fellow covered in tattoos.
Tommy Easy.
Yeah, he does a lot of harm to the society.
He certainly had a go at the disabled. Why would I have a disabled? Why would I want a disabled ramp in my building? I'm not going to have one.
It was definitely overt criticism of Māori while they both lounged back in large leather chairs with big stoogies and cognacs.
Okay.
Don't remember that?
No.
What was the public reaction like to those shows?
What we would do is we'd take Bob to lunch. We'd have a lovely slap-up lunch. We would make sure there was a lot of wine flowing.
That's to say, yeah.
And then we would say, OK, Bob, let's go do this. And we'd get him into makeup, sit him in a chair, and he would say whatever he felt like.
Which begs the question, what does Bob look like without makeup
Raises the question. It's pretty much the same. It's one of these disciplines. It seems to be a room you have to go through in order to get to the other room. One must go to makeup.
Yeah. Okay. So you think what he says, I don't know about this man. You think everything he said should just be taken tongue-in-cheek?
I had to take it however you like.
Okay. That's a great answer for any content. That's a great answer for any content.
Disagree with them.
Yeah.
I think he's a national treasure.
Yeah.
He's hilarious. Actually, one of the most astounding things I've ever seen in my life. One was a gecko being born, and before it was fully out of the cloaca, it had caught a fly. But the next most amazing thing I've seen is Bob Jones breakdancing.
Is the cloaca like a...
it's a foo-foo hole in a
I was going to say,
gecko.
Why is it not just called a vagina?
Why aren't you interested in this Bob Jones?
Well,
I've seen him break dance.
I love it.
Can you imagine?
A headspin?
It was just...
Is that where his hair went?
It was just him and me of an evening, and we had too many wines. And he said, for God's sake, these people are rapping. They go, this is... Look at this, bitch, motherfucker. Oh, what the hell do they do that for? Why do they do that? Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to look so silly? For God's sake. And he did an impersonation of breakdancing. And it was like, holy
Can I tell you...
I really wish I'd filmed that.
Your impersonation of Bob Jones breakdancing was like an impersonation of Mr. Burns.
A bit, yeah.
Back to the Weekend Variety Wireless.
Yep.
We talked about the range of content. The one I listened to had New Zealand's Rambo with your resident historian.
Yep.
Had a poetry reading section, which could have just been dire in the wrong hands, but very entertaining.
It was. I thought it was a bit of a risk taking it on, but I thought won't die wondering.
It's a marginalised, area of literature in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
in the general public.
But if you find someone who does have a passion for it, and it doesn't matter who they are, it could have been a fitter and turner from Sydenham.
Yeah.
But I've got Chris Matthews from Headless Chicken, Steve Braunius, not a poet. But
you'd have different people in each week.
Yeah.
Oh, the woman you had on she read brilliantly. I think part of poetry is the person reciting it, delivering it in a way that connects.
C.K. Stead. One thing is, I wanted to get past the idea that it's impenetrable. So you get someone to read a poem they like, and then you say, why is it good? And that's just a plain question that one should be able to answer. And people do answer it clearly. Bill Doreen, Sam Hunt, and they were all very clear and eloquent in their description of why it's good. And that's all you wanted to know. Why is it good?
Overall, to me, I think it's just because they've always struck me as kind of snapshots of life delivered with,
Oh, a bit of effort goes into these things,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the good ones.
Have you heard of Tourette's?
Tomorrow and tomorrow.
Do you know Tourette's? Not obviously the New Zealand poet.
No.
He's very good.
I have heard of Steve Broading has introduced me, but I don't know enough to say yes.
Okay. I tried to have Steve on this show, but he's it's funny, people who write biographies of people, he's a bit shy about coming in and doing it himself.
He was a bit shy about coming in and doing the poetry thing, but he was marvellous.
Brilliant writer. He's one of my favourite. If there's a long-form piece by Steve, it's one of my favourite New Zealand
me too.
writers. I read the one about Richie Hardcore, it was hilarious.
Yeah, he's really good.
Really good.
I can remember pieces of Steve's writing verbatim by heart. A cat positioned between the window and the Venetian blinds, looking out, too cool to pull faces.
One of the features was something like obscure museums.
Yep.
Is that what
Secret Museums of New Zealand.
Right. So again, what I really liked about that is just stuff that. It's just stuff that's going on around us. We go, there's nothing to do.
Well, this
crazy little museums around New Zealand.
This perfectly fills the remit of finding something nobody's interested in, finding someone for whom it's their life's passion, and talking to them. The Lesbian Museum was a revelation. It was hilariously good.
Where is it?
It's in Te Aratu.
Really?
There's a lesbian museum. It's got a lesbian curator with lesbian stuff in it.
Is it one of those places like when
the top twins are everywhere?
Well, I'd imagine when you're driving through the country and you see someone who's got a shop as part of their house, is it like one of those things that's a part of... See, I'd be a bit funny about going into someone's front room to see their museum.
Go to Dunedin, go to Royal Terrace, and go to the Museum of Unnatural Mystery. Just tremendous.
What's in there?
Weird bones.
And what's the sort of what's the mandate? How does something qualify to be an exhibit?
If it's a weird bone, he makes arty stuff out of his bones. There are a lot of bones in there.
Are they just New Zealand bones, or is he?
There's a signed copy of a Peter Gutteridge record. That's good enough for me.
So there's one signed record and just a bunch of bones.
Yeah.
See, if that's in someone's front room, I'm not sure. I'd park the car.
They want you to go there.
Yeah, I know, but I'd also want to park the car somewhere where I'm not blocked in if I have to leave quickly.
Is that your concern?
Well, yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
But the one that you went...
How the hell do you ever go anywhere?
The one that... Well,
that's a concern that would be repeated on a daily basis whenever you travelled.
But not going into people's front rooms to...
They want you to.
Yeah.
There's a sign on the outside that says, open.
I know. Do they have refreshments?
No.
The one that you travelled through on the show I listened to sounded like a bit bigger operation than a front room. That was the Museum of Regret.
Yeah.
Fantastic. The items were, it was a well-curated idea.
Yeah.
I thought.
Yeah. Cumberland Street, Dunedin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Museum of Regrets. Great recordings of the Mayor of Auckland at the time, Dame Kath Tizard.
Off her face.
Off completely fucked.
Even better, it's
munted.
It's about 5:30 in the afternoon, so she's given it
7.
She's given it a good day drink.
It's revealed. It was 7 days to the moment ahead of the Queen Street riots, and she just happens to say, "What do we want to happen here? Violence? Who said yes? I'll kill you if you do. Do we want Molotov cocktails? No. I was just coming through here to go home."
I said to turn everything down.
Did you?
Yeah. Wouldn't wash these days.
Oh, there were tweets from Pebbles Hooper and the Museum of Regrets. There's the importing of possums and stoats.
So just a bit more scene setting, folks.
Does the apologies win?
There's a really nice touch not related to regrets in that Kath Tissard, hopeful rant to the public in Ailsa Square is there happens to be a reggae band that have just finished a song who introduce her, and then partway through they start dubbing her out Jamaica style.
Yeah.
So she's going.
Oh no! That was the sound man, Rex Visible, who.
Yeah, but he had an echo on hand, so he started Jamaican dubbing her out.
He's the one who so kindly gave me the recording. Yes, dubbing her out. So we come back to here. Stop that.
And he just held on to it. It must have made the news at the time. It's too weird.
No.
See, no one could contact anyone then.
No, well, no one would have the recording.
Someone went down to the phone box to ring the news. There was someone in the phone box.
No one filmed it. No one had the recording.
So you got the recording to the museum?
Yes.
Nice. It's all comes full circle, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
I heard through the grapevine that you went to a public talk to challenge an expert on string theory about string theory.
Nope.
What is string theory?
I suppose it's a mathematical hypothesis. I think it's a bit rich calling it a theory in a scientific term.
Yeah.
There's no evidence for the damn thing. It's very, very hard to test. But if you could test it, it would be useful to find out if it's right or not. It seems to work on a blackboard. There is a bit of a schism in physics. One group saying, that's fun, you're calculating, and another group saying this is the answer to unified theory. It requires 11 dimensions. It's a lot of it is just maybe it seems to work on paper. But no one can go, aha, there it is.
Do you recall ever having gone to relay this to someone? No. Okay.
Yeah. Brian Greene.
Oh.
I interviewed Brian Greene. He's a proponent of string theory. And what did I say? I said, is it science? Because is it testable?
Speaking of such things, science, religions, worldviews,
you fill
views
that up
held.
for me?
Yes, I can.
Thanks.
Who was the guy that challenged you on your heathen ways in terms of not embracing the words of the church?
The worst export from New Zealand ever. His name is Ray Comfort from Christchurch. He's a big-time evangelist.
Is one of those con artists like give me money pastors, isn't he?
No, he's a little more obsequious than that.
Okay, do tell.
He's a fundamentalist. Personal revelation is the answer. Jesus wants to save your soul, and you're going to hell if you don't accept him. So I was just arguing about the whole idea of Jesus in the first place, which it seems the whole damn thing's preposterous. In fact, all religions are preposterous.
So how does he cotton on?
They're ridiculous.
So how does he cotton on to the fact that you were saying this in New Zealand when he's over in the state opening envelopes with checks in them?
He has people.
Yeah, oh, right.
And
so
they would have informed him of this person. You need to go and talk with him. So Ray Comfort got up at 3 a.m. to be on my program. It was fun. It was great fun. I love arguing about religion.
So there's no point in his shtick where he asks people to send in money now.
Buy the DVD.
I thought that's what an evangelist was.
Not necessarily.
No.
Buy the DVD. It's online. Yes, he wants to make money out of it, but I've no reason to think that he's not genuine in wanting my soul to be saved.
So
through the most ridiculous idea on the planet.
I'm on the same page with you with kind of, men in the sky with sandals disciplining you for being bad and so on. But when you say all religion is rubbish, what about the notions of things like what about something like Buddhism, where it's just kind of like about...
Is it a religion or is it string theory? I don't know.
It's spirituality, I guess, rather than religion, isn't it?
What is spirituality?
What would spirituality be? I guess it's like...
I actually don't know what it means.
Yeah, maybe something like sort of a... well, then I was going to say faith, but that comes back to religion, doesn't it? Do you want me to look it up?
Spirituality? No. I think we should find our own meanings of these things. I propose...
I think it's finding... this is so reduced down. Finding a sort of an inner peace and sort of comfort in the day-to-day of existing as a human. Just sort of having some, I guess, coping mechanism with the more challenging bits of being a bunch of cells that,
a coping mechanism.
Have more intelligence than other bunches of cells.
Okay, I'll give you my definition.
Yep.
When people feel strongly emotional about something and find it completely intangible. It's just feeling something deeply.
Yeah.
Oh, it's spiritual.
And you
feeling something.
You're saying it in that tone, like you think it's a bit cheesy. You think?
No.
No.
What I think is that people wheel the word out without thinking much at all about what they're meaning.
Yeah.
And words are important because you say a word, you want somebody to understand what you mean by it.
Yeah.
And when people talk about spirituality, I think there's a little lack of due diligence about what you actually bloody mean.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in terms of it in action, we all seek something around my definition. So, I don't know, it could be gardening, right?
Gardening is spirituality.
Well, just things that...
Here we go.
Things that, as I say, take you out of the kind of...
Feels good.
Cognitive rat race that is...
Feels good.
Being a... Yeah, but also like... Yeah, feels
like
good.
What?
Feels good. Yeah, feels
good.
Feels good. Like, tending a skink population. Playing piano.
Feeling
Flow,
something deeply.
There's a guy...
feeling something deeply.
Right, so there's a guy with a very long surname, Sheckman Hire or something. This notion of flow. Quite a simple idea at the core of it, but he got quite engrossed in it as an academic, and it's this idea of kind of relates totally to spirituality to me, of basically that idea of being in the zone. So when you're doing something that you enjoy and other things kind of cease to matter, the obvious example would be musicians have it when they're in the pocket. Some people have it when they're gaming. People get it when that idea when other things are stripped away and you're in the enjoyment and rhythm of that activity.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't
send no money now.
It's nothing supernatural, is it?
No. I didn't suggest it was to begin with. That's why I started with Buddhism. I'm right. I'm kind of right with you. Not that it would matter.
Well, Buddhism,
whether we were or we weren't. But yeah, religion's a horrible scam.
Wow, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the thing with Buddhism is they do get into trouble with all this reincarnation stuff.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm not in the boat there.
Another thing that deeply annoys me in terms of the place of religion, the role science has taken on kind of post the reason that arguably religion had more of a reason to exist, is this kind of global phenomena of turning your back on science and people not kind of vaccinating their kids and stuff. And we seem to be going back to a world of sort of, I don't mean religion faith-based, but kind of faith-based approaches to things. Why are scientists and doctors and so on suddenly not to be trusted?
Push comes to shove, they are. Have a car accident, what are you going to call? A chiropractor?
My naturopath.
You're a naturopath?
Yeah.
No, you're not. You're going to want scientific help.
What are the ones that have smelly juice in the bottles? I want one of them to come to the accident.
I don't think. You'll find that happens, which proves the lie of what they're saying.
You have
the greatest achievement in human history was scientific.
This is what I'm saying, sir. But I'm sure that you have noticed...
And I'll tell you what it is.
What?
We got rid of smallpox. Yeah. 20 million people a year would die of that damn thing. It's off the planet. I don't think there's another piece of human endeavour that has helped humankind as much.
So with this, because you would have, you gave the pastor his voice, but then you'd have someone from the Skeptic Society on.
Yep.
Something like that, as I say, that comes back to the vaccination thing, where it's one of those conspiracy theories I actually get angry with people about because it's dangerous to other people.
Yeah.
Would you entertain a voice like that on your show? I've not listened to enough of them. Would you have, like, say, a loud anti-vaxxer voice, for example, in New Zealand on and let them argue their case? Or would you not, would you just go, that's too ridiculous?
Yep.
Okay.
I wouldn't give it great priority, but yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because if you can't argue it, then you don't have a point.
Yeah, like Hamilton deciding to take the fluoride out of the water, it's sort of like, you can start off with something a bit nutty on the internet, but when it starts to spread, it's worrying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Fluoride works.
It does. Thanks very much, Graeme. It's stayed recording, which is fantastic.
Yay!
What does the rest of the day hold for you, sir? Friday?
I've got to pick up some Solar Guard weather shields, roof paint, permanent green, from Mitre 10. And begin getting in the zone.
I'll send you that guy's surname. It's very long, and you can read about flow.
All right.
Where did you get your Make Orwell fiction again hat? It's
It was
fantastic.
a gift.
Yeah.
It was a gift. Orwell is worth it.
Yeah.
Although there is a problem with Orwell. He's oversighted by a lot of people that just want to make out that he's on their side. So if I get people saying "great hat" from all sorts of areas that may have nothing to do with George Orwell at all.
Yeah.
But he's worth it. George Orwell's worth it.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Our Mayor, Kath Tizard.
Hi, I'm a real intruder here. I'm coming back, but look, I simply... Shut up, you lot, shut up.
Oh, this is brilliant. Yeah, well, she's basically hammered.
I really do have to say something because I was simply coming back through the square tonight to go back to go home. But this is what we want to happen in the square. Sure. What do we want to happen in Aotea Square? We want fun, right? Do we want violence? No. Do we want Molotov cocktails thrown? Did you say yes? I'll kill you if you do.
Yeah, you know, she's as drunk as a lord. And,
Stop a moment.
well, you know...
Just stop a moment and listen to me. I ask you to listen to me seriously for a moment. Because you know, and I know, that Auckland Central is a great place to have fun. But we all need to be part of making sure that ordinary, decent people can come here safely and have fun here. Let's make sure that every